Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this Solution Partner Program webinar, Experience-Driven Commerce, powered by Adobe and ElasticPath. My name is Jeff Anderson, and I'll be the Adobe Connect producer and host for this webinar today. First things first, I'd like to ask you a favor as we get started with the session. We'd like you, as I'm going through a little bit of housekeeping right now, to fill out these opening poll questions that you see on your screen, just to let us know a little bit more about you and the commerce engines you work on, and what your customers and clients are looking for. So as I'm going through this, please just take a moment to answer the questions on your screen. Feel free to answer as many options as you would like for that first question there on the screen. The session today is scheduled to last for approximately 1 hour. It is being recorded for future on-demand viewing. After the session today, we'll plan to share the recording and any resources that are covered, both via email to everybody who registered, and they will also be posted to the Adobe Solution Partner portal. If you can hear my voice right now, you've probably already figured this out, but this is a voice over IP audio session, which means that audio will be available through your computer speakers. Please make sure that your computer speakers are enabled with the volume turned up. If you do have any issues with that integrated audio or simply prefer to dial in, you can find details for that in the audio pod in the lower left corner of your screen. They're down in the audio pod where you can see intercall details with the conference code and any dial-in number that you might need. This is a voice over IP audio session, and as I said, so again, please let us know if you're having any issues. Sometimes that does occur, and you can use the moderated Q&A pod on the left-hand side of your screen. Obviously, that's there for you to be able to send us concerns about any technical issues you're having, but more importantly, we can in that space hear from you about the content. So we do want this to be interactive. Please make sure to let us know if you have questions or comments throughout the session, and we'll likely hold those for a Q&A period that we have dedicated at the end of the presentation and demo content today. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and kick things off, and let's get started with our session and our presenters. So we're pleased with us today to have from Adobe, Ryan Green, Senior Manager, Commerce Strategy and Alliances, and then a couple of friends from ElasticPath, Brian Gilmore, the Director of Technical Sales, and Sean Scamness, VP of Business Development. But to kick things off, it's going to be Ryan to start our presentation today. So Ryan, please go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for those that answered the poll question. I thought it was interesting to see a lot of great folks have some knowledge of ElasticPath and some other. I saw a lot of Hybris, saw a lot of homegrown, saw some IBM, some Salesforce. So great audience today. And as Jeff was mentioning, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be going through the Adobe section here, setting the stage, and then we are going to move things along. So first, I want to kick things off. The evolving customer. We know that we're constantly changing. We're always connected. We have several devices. We thrive on experiences. Our wallet is shifting to experiences rather than things. We're agnostic to channel. We're elusive to loyalty. Roughly, we only had, about in 2001, a 12-second attention span, and now we're down to roughly about 8 seconds. So it's important to know that we have even less time to delight our customers, so it's very important. We know that they can start online, they can finish in the store, they can start on the web, finish in the store. There's a lot of different ways, and it's very complex to do this. I think about my consulting days, about how very complex this is. So now we have even less time. We have multiple channels to go after these customers, and the millennials that are coming up in this generation is a large cohort, and they're connected to over 5 different devices. And they're constantly connected and they have high expectations. So the customers are continually evolving. And when you think about what we need to do, we need to listen, predict, assemble, and deliver that all within milliseconds here. So if we think about what experience we need to deliver for that 8 seconds that they're actually going to be really paying attention to that customer, that's the moment of truth, and we need to be doing it in milliseconds. We can talk about retail and B2B and also in grocery now without talking about Amazon. Out of every new dollar of growth, they're eating roughly 51 cents of that from the e-commerce perspective. And when we look at retail itself, which is the larger portion of where sales are in the brick and mortar stores, they're taking about 24 cents out of that dollar. They're getting into grocery, as everybody knows here. Today, I believe, this week is when they're officially closing with the Whole Foods acquisition here, and they're also getting a little bit deeper into kind of the private market. So it's important to know that a lot of folks are shifting to, going to Amazon for product discovery. So it's important that we're doing everything we can in order to fight against that and delight the customer. And they're deploying 50 million times a year. So for those of you that are familiar with microservices, they're constantly deploying new sections of their site. And I saw a lot of folks said that they're working with some of the bigger monolithic stacks. And as you know, those bigger monolithic stacks that aren't innovative and are not agile, you won't be doing deployments at that speed and that velocity. So as Steve Jobs says, it's important to start with that customer experience and move backwards into technology. I think we're all technologists on the line here, and we're always looking at new ways to delight the customer, but it's important to talk about the customer experience first and put yourself in there. Honestly, sometimes if I'm working with a customer, I just go in the store and do the experience itself. So while we are talking about technology, it's important to talk about the experience and put yourself in that customer's shoes. So what does that experience make? That experience needs to be compelling, it needs to be personal, useful, and everywhere. So what I mean by that is that, first of all, it needs to be compelling. It needs to have some sort of offer that's going to grab your attention. Like I mentioned, you only have about 8 seconds. It needs to be personal to you, not just putting your name in the email address and only doing personalization when I'm logging in. There's a lot of different ways that you can create a personal experience for a customer that's known and also unknown. Useful and everywhere. Another thing to think about is contextual. So understand that I might be traveling, I'm on vacation. So having that contextual information is going to be important for you to deliver a great experience. So where do we see a lot of the business issues that are coming up in today's, with a lot of customers that we're seeing, is they're really slow to deliver that personalized experience. As I kind of alluded to before, the big monolithic stacks are really struggling in order to do things like speed to market. When you have hundreds of thousands of lines of code, in order to push an update, it's going to be very difficult in order to actually deliver that. Centralizing the tool set. So as brands are expanding and going more from the brick and mortar store to online, or from standing up a net new brand, they're struggling with centralized tools in order to execute experiences. So just think about a piece of content that goes from the photo shoot all the way to design, into product, being uploaded, tagged. Think about all the different mechanisms and tool sets that are going to be touching that asset. It's difficult to understand the customer interactions. I think one thing that's important, especially with cross-channel, and this is something that Adobe does well, is a cross-device co-op, where we can allow to see customers across different devices. So whereas before you would think you would have 10 visitors, you actually really only have 4 customers across different devices. So that's a big challenge there. And the complexity and also kind of some of the risk of the technology stacks that are out there, it's really putting a lot of pressure on the retail brands in order to figure out how are we going to execute our technology stack to delight that customer. And it really goes end to end, from all the way from awareness, interest, consideration, conversion, loyalty, and advocacy. It's really important that you're looking at all these different micro moments here. So starting all the way from the beginning and going all the way down the end. I think some of the great brands that I've seen lately have customer journey maps, and they're looking at all these small different micro moments, and they're trying to figure out ways to delight that customer. So what does that exactly mean? It needs to be across every channel and every device. So some CMS systems are really kind of reluctant on expanding channels or across different devices, different systems. It needs to offer high utility. Like I mentioned before, it needs to save time. So if I want to buy online and pick up in store, if I want to buy in my car, if I want to buy on my phone, buy in my Echo, it needs to be across all those. But they also deliver a lot of convenience and utility to the customer. Easy and intuitive. When I'm on my mobile phone, I don't want to have to zoom in 10 different times to click on one button and then have to do the same exact thing on the next page. It needs to be easy and intuitive. And as we mentioned before, it needs to be personalized. Obviously, that's one of the priorities for a lot of retailers, but some of the personalization I'm seeing is really only across the known customers, and there's a lot that you can do across the known and unknown. So it's important to just think that Adobe is really about the systems of engagement. So if we think of all the different touch points that customer might go across, from the beginning of the customer journey to the end of the customer journey, those are really engagement systems where they're touching your brand. You're having a conversation with them, you're trying to sell them, you're coaching them along. And then also there's the back-end systems, or the systems of record, where it's going to get you into the commerce engine. So as many of you know, I'm not going to go through each of the solutions here from the Adobe Marketing Cloud perspective. It's a really end-to-end solution that's going to allow you to work a lot more effective at your job, not only just from a measurement standpoint, but really getting into the content side of things. So we have our commerce integration framework, which ties us into Elastic Path, and that really allows that system of record to tie in with a system of engagement like I mentioned before. So if we break out what's the difference between Adobe and a commerce engine, first, we are not a commerce engine. We don't want to be a commerce engine. We're really focusing in on the experience layer. So any of the digital touch points, all the digital assets, all the content that you would have, and continuing to optimize not only just your marketing dollars, but also looking at it from a site perspective and all the different touch points that you have. And then we would be tying into Elastic Path, which is going to be your core commerce components, the business logic. It's going to have the catalog, merchandise, and we'll go a little bit deeper into some of the components of Elastic Path. So that really separates us from a commerce engine, just to set context for later. And the one thing that I really want to mention here is a lot of line of business managers and merchandisers, it's very difficult for them to make changes to a website. You know, they'll have to, I would say on the majority of the Fortune 100, they'll have to be submitting different tickets, and it takes several different weeks, if not months, to publish changes to their particular pages here. So what this allows us to do, working with Elastic Path, this allows that marketer, that merchandiser, to really figure out, okay, I want to be changing and tweaking my online experience. I can tie into the business process and the commerce engine. And then on the bottom section here, I can set up different profiles. So if Ryan comes in and I'm in New York and I'm on vacation, I can look at all these different components, and from the Elastic Path data, knowing that I bought different shirts, pants, what's the next best offer? So it's really combining everything together that's going to allow us to do that. And my last slide here, I just want to talk about some of the unique value props that allows us to do this with Elastic Path here. First is to build and manage omni-channel experiences without IT reliance. As I mentioned before, a lot of businesses are struggling, especially the line of business managers, in order to make changes to their website here. So, and it's not just the website, it's also all the different digital touch points that you might have. So it could be a POS system, it could be a social wall, it could be an app. Being able to manage all those in a central spot and push those out. And Adobe doesn't have to own the glass. We could be headless. We could be headless content and push that out to a screen that maybe we don't own, but your authors are creating that within a central tool set. Understanding robust customer data is also very important, because as I mentioned before, if you don't have context in which the customer is coming to you, you're going to deliver a poor experience. So utilizing that data to the full extent that you can is really going to allow you to do that. So it's not just, it's first-party data, second-party data, and third-party data. I think second-party data is allowing retailers to do a lot more instead of some of the third-party data is great, second-party data is awesome, and then first is great. Then we also want to be personalizing that experience. So should the button, it gets past just the button should be green, yellow, and orange, what color should it be? But also kind of what's the content that we should be showing, what's some of the products that we should be showing on that page. So personalizing it for that customer and the context in which we have from the data. And then also we want to be continuously optimizing and learning from that. So splitting them out in different segments in order to optimize and learn from what we're seeing from our customer base. So it's important to understand kind of these 4 key value props here that's going to allow us to do that with Elastic Path here. And I would like to close things off here and pass it over to Sean.
Thanks, Ryan. And hello, everyone. We appreciate you joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and move that forward. There we go. So Elastic Path, we appreciate everybody joining. I'm going to give a quick overview of Elastic Path and then turn it over to Brian Gilmore to demonstrate some of the cool things, the cool and innovative stuff that we're doing with a number of the shared customers we have with Adobe. Starting off, Elastic Path is a commerce software company. That's what we do, and it's we build an open and flexible platform that allows commerce anywhere, anytime. And simply put, what does that mean? That means that we help brands enable commerce at every touch point in the customer journey that Ryan described. We get somebody delighted, we want to go ahead and give that brand the opportunity to transact at that moment of truth. So that's what we do first and foremost. And Ryan outlined, that experience matters, and at Elastic Path we strongly believe this, so much so that we ripped the front end off our application a number of years ago, and we focus solely on commerce and partner with Adobe to really leverage the power of the Experience Cloud to manage the user interaction, manage that glass. Doesn't always have to be Experience Cloud managing, but we look to our partner in Adobe to really let them go ahead and manage the glass and let us go ahead and bring transactional capability, and Brian will explain that in a little bit more and show you some of the cool stuff a bit later. We think this is an approach that's working for us. The folks at Gartner, just in the Magic Quadrant, the recent Magic Quadrant, listed us or recognized us as visionary. We've been leading that API-based, you'll hear it referred to as headless commerce or API-based commerce. We've been leading that movement for the last number of years, and we think again it's working. From an embedded commerce and a customer experience standpoint, the folks at Gartner scored us top in both those categories, which really I think helps us denote that for those brands that are really building that experience business, as the folks at Adobe have been presenting at the last couple of summits, and as Brad Wrench had denoted, that the brands that are really driving experience or becoming experience business see more success than those that are not. So this is really why we have our partnership with Adobe. It allows us to go ahead and bring the best of an experience platform and an enterprise application like Elastic Path and bring that together as a solution offering to the market. And the partnership officially got underway in 2014, Summit 2014. We launched the experience-driven commerce offering. I see my friend Mark Hayes is on the phone, so Mark and team helped lead that charge once upon a time. So we initially started off tightly integrated into the Experience Cloud through AEM, and we broadened that out over the years to be integrated both on the analytics, target, and campaign side. So that's an area that we continue to drive innovation with. We are very tightly integrated. The Commerce Integration Framework, we continue to go ahead and innovate with Ryan and team to make sure that we're staying up to speed on what's happening from an Adobe perspective. We are the first Adobe Exchange Business Partner Commerce partner. The Exchange program for the solution partners on the phone is that's the partner program for us technology companies that partner with Adobe. So we're the first commerce partner, not the only one at the moment, but the first one that jumped in. And then we go to market with Adobe. So we're key strategic selling and sourcing partners. So most of the deals that we do have Adobe involved in them. So we share about 30 plus customers. Here's the highlights of a few. You notice T-Mobile, Intuit, Carnival. Obviously T-Mobile and Carnival were detailed, were widely showcased at the last couple of summits. Great brands that we're privileged to work with. You see our folks at Tesla, Consumer Reports, Emilio Zenya. We've got some really great brands that we're privileged to work with and share with the Adobe team. So from a commerce perspective, again, that headless standpoint. So the Elastic Path Commerce for Adobe Experience Cloud, it is a product that we maintain and go to market with. For us, as I mentioned, we ripped our head off a number of years ago. So that's where the Experience Cloud. So Elastic Path is made up of enterprise-level, feature-rich core commerce capabilities, as you would expect in an enterprise commerce application. We built a very sophisticated API layer we call Cortex. It's really an API operating system. It allows us to go ahead and take the nouns of commerce, as we refer to them, and deliver those through a platform like the Adobe Experience Cloud to all the various touch points. And Brian's going to show you some of the cool things that we've done from the various touch points. So Cortex allows, it's a hypermedia REST level 3 API. It doesn't carry a lot of overhead on the client side, so very sophisticated operating system and functionality that is really the secret sauce to Elastic Path Commerce. We also have a very robust integration framework that allows us to go ahead and pull information out of all those backend systems that you would expect. So the customer information sitting in the CRM, or information sitting in ERP systems, or we do a lot in the telecommunications space where pricing engines are very complex. So we can go ahead and pull information out of backend systems, bring it into our core commerce, do the magic things that we do with it, and then go ahead and publish and embed the transactional capability across the entire customer journey. So that's a bit about Elastic Path. I'm going to turn it over to Brian Gilmore, and Brian is going to show you how it all comes to life through a couple of demos we have. Mr. Gilmore.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Brian Gilmore here. Okay, so what I'm going to show you today is actually a couple series of demos. I'm going to start out with a very traditional web store experience and explain some of the integrations between the Adobe Experience Manager and Elastic Path platform. But then I'm going to take you into a little bit of a different world. We have what we call our connected car demo, and we're going to show you how you can extend Elastic Path and Adobe into the world of IoT devices. And I'll be using an Amazon Alexa device here, as well as a simulated dashboard from a connected car. So I think to start out with, let's talk a little bit about some of the basics here. So as you can see here on my screen, I have essentially a very traditional web store with the rich look and feel that you would expect from an experience-driven site using AEM. And I should mention too, here with Elastic Path, we are actually showing you a very live demo. This is running in the cloud right now with the full Elastic Path platform and Adobe running. So this is all live. None of this is canned. But when you look at this particular store, you can immediately see that you have that rich branding of the new Vestry car. And you have products that you can highlight here at the bottom, such as the Sabora coffee package and the tire repair kit. Now these are all very traditional content elements within Adobe. So these long descriptions here would be coming from Adobe because this is what your marketing teams would produce, the images of course as well. But you can also start to see some of the sampling of the commerce content being embedded in here as well with the search and things like the cart here. Now we're able to embed this within the Adobe world because of that Cortex API that Sean was mentioning. So that unique ability of the API makes that a very seamless experience between Adobe and Elastic Path, not just here at the presentation for the runtime, but also for the authoring behind the scenes. So I do want to show you this very briefly. So if I come over and I'm just here now in Adobe Experience Manager and I'm clicking through some of the sites, and as I go through and I look at some of these sites and I pull up one of my products here, I'm just going to very briefly show you one of the pages within the authoring experience. So I'm in preview mode right now for this particular product detail page. This is an X-Class 3.0 battery upgrade. But as I pop into my edit mode, you can see now all of a sudden all my components here that are highlighted. From a marketer's perspective or someone who's on the business side managing the site, this piece of commerce is essentially like any other content. I can come in here and I can configure my related products. I can modify my component here for this particular product, and I can drag and drop components here on the left. So the beauty of the Cortex API is that you're now abstracting the need for developers and IT projects to get involved anytime that you want to make changes to that commerce experience. So this is a great benefit to the business side because they can move at a much faster pace and react to changes within the marketplace. So I'm going to take you back to the login page, and I'm going to go ahead and log in here. So we're having a little bit of fun with our username. So going with the car theme, we are going to do Roger Moore at ep.com. And we're going to log him in. And the reason we're logging him in right now is because I want to show you how we can do some of the integrations between Adobe and ElasticPath with regard to the customer experience and what context and segments that they belong to. So you can see now I'm logged in as Roger Moore. And as I begin to scroll through the site, you can see I have some campaign banners popping up here promoting things such as Adobe Summit attendees get 15% off if they use this particular promotion code. Now we also have this promotion code configured here on the back end for ElasticPath. So if I were to go in and look at the details of that code, you can see that I have certain shopper conditions that I've set and activation rules that go along with that particular coupon code. But in this particular case, because I'm Roger Moore, I also belong to a VIP segment. And what I'll show you here in a minute is how I can use that to get some additional promotional discounts. So let me just continue going through the site, and I'll drill down into this particular product detail page for this 19-inch slipstream wheel. And as I was mentioning earlier, this is a perfect blend of the Adobe experience and ElasticPath. So the images, this long content here at the bottom, these are things that are coming from Adobe Experience Manager. But the price, the availability, the SKUs behind the scenes, the add to cart button, these are all representations of the ElasticPath API coming out within the presentation layer or within the glass. Now if I add this to my cart, the deeper you go in, you'll see more and more commerce coming to the surface. So as I click on the cart, you now see my item in here, and if I were to go through and start the checkout process, you can see that the cart will begin to do my tally and show my taxes and my subtotal and things of that nature. Now I can go ahead and enter that promotion code, but remember the promotion code, that's really available to everybody, and I'll apply that, and I went ahead and I took $375 off. So this is all configurable and changeable real time back on the ElasticPath side if you wanted to insert new promotion codes or other discounts that are based on the segments that are coming from Adobe. Now also, because I am Roger Moore, as I said, we're in a VIP scenario here, we can also qualify for larger discounts. So if I wanted to do like a 10K promotion is what I call it. So if I add these very expensive turbine wheels, and we just need to add 2 of these to hit the 10K mark, pop that into the cart. And as that comes up, you'll see my subtotal here is 14,500. And on the back end, I've got, show you this real quick. So on the back end, I've got a 10K cart promotion also configured. And essentially the promotion rules here state that as long as I get 10,000 in my cart, I should get an additional 10% off. And so you can see it's gone ahead and it's automatically, because it knows what segment that I belong to, and I've configured that to match the segments that are coming from the context on the Adobe side. It's now giving me that discount. So I can even layer in that Summit 2017 code on top of this if I wanted to do that. Now, in some cases, you may wonder, well, how do I know which segment is going to give me a better conversion for my cart, or which promotion or which price point is going to give me a better promotion for my cart? Now, one of the things that you can do with Target is you can assign different segments to different price lists within ElasticPath. So if I come over here back to my web admin console for ElasticPath, and I'm looking through and I see my price list here, you can see that we actually keep the notion of prices separate within our platform, but we have what we call a split test A and a split test B price list. And what we've done, if I go ahead and I open that up, is we've assigned this particular price list. I should probably open up the price list assignment if I want to show that properly. So we've assigned that particular price list to the segment also of the same name. I'll open that up for you. And as you can see, when I open this up, and I go through this wizard that prioritizes what prices that might be related to me, you can see that this is set up for my split test A segment. I'm going to cancel that because I've already got this configured, but this is a great example of how I can use 2 different groups to determine which prices would result in more conversions on my Adobe site. So I'm going to pop back to the demo over here, and we'll just go ahead and we'll complete this checkout because I want to go ahead and clear the cart. So we'll click purchase. Okay, So we've got our order done. Our cart should be clear now. We'll go back to the vestry homepage. And now for the second part of the demo, what I want to show you is actually, if you can imagine, the web store is only just the very traditional first type of store that your customers may encounter. We have a proliferation of devices today. Everybody has Apple Watches, tablets. Amazon Alexa has made a big splash, of course, for commerce. And you really never know what type of product or what type of device or touch point you may encounter in the future. So for this part of the demo, I need to do a little bit of explaining because I have this Alexa device here and it goes pretty fast. So imagine, if you will, for a second, that you're in your connected car here, your Vestry M-Class, and you're going to go on a trip, and you know that you need to get some new tires for your car. And as you're going through this journey for your car, you say, well, I'm going to go to the service center and pick up those tires, but I probably need to get a charge along the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through a voice interaction simulation using Alexa. And again, this is all live. This is up in the cloud. And we're going to show how I can add those tires to my cart here in the traditional experience. But as I go through my voice interaction with Alexa and I get to the service center, I can actually show that I have a universal cart, and I can take that and do one complete checkout no matter what device that I'm coming through. So let's just go ahead and grab, we'll grab some more tires. We're going to do all 4 tires this time. So add that to our cart. And I'm going to leave this in my cart for right now. And okay, I'll pop open the second half of the screen. So you guys should see I have, for the simulated dashboard of the car, we're actually running this on my Android tablet. And to my side here, which you can't see, is this Amazon Alexa device. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to keep the microphone close so you can see the interaction between Alexa and the simulated dashboard here for the car. Alexa, what time is it?
The time is 11:33 a.m.
Okay, so here we'll start the demo for Alexa now. Alexa, launch dashboard.
Welcome, Roger Moore. Would you like to start Elastic Path's car demo?
Yes.
Choose your destination, Whistler, BC, Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, Washington.
Okay, so we're going to go to Seattle. Seattle?
You need to recharge your car battery to get there. Book a charging session nearby.
Yes, please.
Okay, choose one of the listed charging session times.
We want to go all the way, so we'll do a full charge. Full charge?
Would you like a coffee while you wait for your car to finish charging?
Yes, please.
Your coffee will be ready for pickup.
Okay.
Thank you for trying out Elastic Path's car demo.
So
Alexa, launch dashboard to restart.
So what we did there is, as Alexa was going through and interacting with my voice, it was driving the connected car screen that you see here. And we knew that we needed to do the charge, and it also gave me an opportunity to upsell to grab that medium latte and biscotti combo. But what was really cool is, if you go back to this screen here, remember how I added the tires because I knew I was going to the service center? Now, obviously in a real-world commerce scenario, you would confirm that you had an extra item in the cart before you went ahead and automatically checked out the customer. But for the purposes of this demo, we knew that we were going to go ahead and get the tires. So if I refresh the screen, you'll see now that my cart is empty. So I've gone ahead and I've completed the checkout. So that was the same cart between the Vestry connected car scenario here and that traditional web store that you saw on the other screen. So if you think about how important it is in today's world with all the different devices, and particularly in retail where you need to be omni-channel, having that persistent cart with Elastic Path, no matter what the touch point, is of a great value to that customer experience. Another thing that's really important to understand here too is that we never know what device is coming on the marketplace next. If anybody remembers Google Glass from about 2 years ago, you probably do, and I think I've heard that it's coming back for another spin here soon, but that was one of those examples where it came into the marketplace very quickly. A lot of people tried it, and it probably went away just as quickly. So with Elastic Path, the ability to have this, this harmonized back end, no matter what your touch point is, you can actually try very quickly anything new that's coming out. And if it doesn't work out, you can fail fast without wasting a lot of time or investment. And the best part of this is you can reuse all that content from what you put onto the Adobe Experience Manager and any of the experience fragments that you created within AEM to keep that consistent experience across all of your various touch points. Now, one last thing I want to show you today. So we've talked a little bit about the traditional store. We talked a little bit about campaign and target and how we can do IoT devices. So one last thing I would like to show you here is some integration into Adobe Analytics. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, hey, can't we just embed these tags on the pages? Well, that's a very traditional approach, and that works fine if you just have a web store. But in the example that I just gave you today, when you have any number of touch points that you need to innovate on very quickly, or in this particular case, how do you embed a tag into Alexa that's voiced, right? That's very, very difficult. So with Elastic Path, one of our integrations into Adobe Analytics is actually done at that Cortex API layer. So if you remember the integration that Sean was talking about, it's used not just for interacting with the presentation layer or the glass, but because all of your touch points are coming in through the Cortex API, you can take that analytics data and inject it into the Adobe Analytics at a consistent point. So in this particular case, you can see right here, we've been running some transactions through the store for quite some time. And in this particular summary of the report for the vestry store, you can see our conversion percentage here for August. The very popular products, that looks like the exterior carbon fiber kit is the #1 product, and the different regions that the customers were coming from. But one of my favorite views here is the channel report. And if you look very closely at the channel report, you can see that we had a number of different touch points that were interacting with the vestry store. Everything from the Experience Center, which is a local client app. I didn't show you that just now, but we also have the desktop, mobile, and then the connected car dashboard that I just demoed to you. So it looks like we need to run the connected car dashboard a little bit more. But what's really great about this is you didn't need to go and embed tags in all the different touch points. You're able to do that with analytics in just one place by integrating that into the Cortex API. And now you have a very great view of everything that's going on here within your world. And you can tweak and adjust this according to what your commerce needs may be. Okay, so that's it for the demo today.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much, Brian, and also thanks to Sean and Ryan for the presentation content. I did just want to take a moment. We have some time now for Q&A, so I do want to take a moment to remind you. I know a lot of you have been sending questions in, and we appreciate that. We're planning on getting to several of those during our Q&A period today, but yeah, just remind you that on the left-hand side of your screen in the Q&A, the moderated Q&A pod, you can submit your questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. Rest assured, if we don't have time to get to all of the questions today, that we will make sure to address those to you offline afterwards. And then one more final request I would make of you before we start the Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and pop up a few more poll questions on your screen. So while we're getting started with our Q&A period, if you could just take a moment to give us some answers to these questions, then we would really appreciate that as well. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it off back to Ryan, who's going to moderate our Q&A today. Ryan, time is yours.
Great, thank you. So this first question here is, and as Jeff was saying, there's several questions in the chat pod that are very, very deep and technical, and some of those we'll be taking directly offline with you. So if your question is not answered, don't feel let down. We're going to bring the resources. So the first question here I want to send to Brian. Can you talk a little bit more about the API orchestration? This is a question from Amit, and he wants to know, if a customer has API orchestration layers in place like Apogee, how would that play in here?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We do have lots of customers that use either Apogee or Layer 7 managed API gateways, and those are actually complementary to the Elastic Path solution. So the management and security abilities of those API gateways are a very critical part of your infrastructure, and the Cortex API does not provide those capabilities. So it is a very good idea to have something like Apogee or Layer 7. What the function of Cortex is really to abstract the front-end presentation layer from the back-end commerce, so that you can make changes to the presentation layer without impacting any of the commerce business logic on the back end. So Cortex is, we actually refer to it, even though technically under the cover this covers it's a level 3 REST API, it's what we call a hypermedia style. So if I'm looking at a product item, for example, that item knows about the price or or other resources such as availability, color SKU combinations, etc. And it can pull all those items forward as a part of that API orchestration on our side. So that's one of the differences between the Cortex API and its function and the other managed API gateways that you would see.
Great, thanks. And one more question for you. As customers are updating product information, where does that live? Does that live in Adobe, Elastic Path? What's some best practices of how that product data, where does it actually live, the system of record? Brian, if you want to just continue to take that one, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, so all of the management of the catalog is done within Elastic Path. So if you need to change some elements of the catalog, create a new category of products, or new products in and of themselves, or change any of those attributes, Elastic Path is the system of record for that. Now we do have other customers that like to have dedicated PIM solutions, which can then be integrated into EP, but the important part here is that you need to know that catalog needs to be promoted up into AEM, because AEM needs a rendering of that catalog in order to create all the pages. So in terms of best practices, you're going to be focusing any of your Adobe changes within AEM on things like the long descriptions or the rich marketing content, or anything really to do with how it is visualized on the page. And anything to do with the actual commerce transaction or the commerce object, such as setting the price or a promotion related to your cart or the product itself, would be done on the Elastic Path side. So hopefully that clarifies.
Great. And we'll shift gears here, and I'll take this question here. So the question from Rama, when we add 2 items in the shopping cart and we're using a laptop, and also another different device here, how is this managed across different devices, the channel functionality? So first and foremost, the Adobe Device Co-op, if you have not heard, that's going to allow us to do this stitching across different devices. So it's an opt-in process where you would bring different folks, you would bring in the logins that would be associated with that customer ID or that cookie ID. We would be stitching that in the background and doing deterministic tagging. So this is based on, we have found Ryan, he's logged in through a different device. This device here is Ryan. So once we could connect the dots across those different cookies and devices respectively, that's going to allow us to know that that's Ryan. So that's step 1. And step 2 is the tie-in with Elastic Path that's going to allow us to do the cart restore. So those 2 different items that I had in my shopping cart, once we can determine that is Ryan, you can start to surface those 2 items back into the cart. So, and I thought that was a great question. That's going to allow you to continue that shopping experience. And there's a lot of different situations there, the privacy, cookie IDs, visitor ID services. So that's a very simple example. Not to say that all of them are going to be very simple to find someone across different devices and to propagate that. And one quick question here for you, Sean, is who do you think is doing commerce well? I always think this is an interesting conversation or an interesting question, but who's doing commerce well, and what are some components of someone doing it well, Sean, in your opinion?
So who's doing it well? I think less than who's doing it well, what are the attributes of doing it well? And I think bringing a consolidated commerce experience across the entire customer journey, those brands that are doing that are doing it well. I shop at RAI a lot. They're doing some interesting things, more conversations coming with the folks there, but I think those individuals that are able to bring commerce at each touch point, whether it's online, offline, that really denotes who does it well. We're interested to see our friends at Carnival are launching a new offering. Ocean Medallion launched at CES this last year. Adobe's powering the front end. Elastic Path is aggregating 62 different platforms. So all post-booking on a Carnival cruise, you will be running through the Elastic Path platform. So when you hit a ship, you can go ahead and buy your excursion. One, you can get on board the ship with all the information, which is usually a bit of a hassle, so it streamlines that process. But then when you're actually on the ship, the ability to transact, you can go up, order a drink at the bar. It's got all this location proximity capabilities within the solution that you can order a drink, walk out to the platforms, walk out to the edge, stare at the ocean, and the hostess will go ahead and find you. So we can book an excursion for you, kind of a recommendation, those kinds of things. So we're really excited to see, a ship is kind of a moving test lab for various user interactions. So we're excited to see Ocean Medallion launch this November and see how the different user patterns. Brian mentioned Google Glass. That one didn't quite make it first go around. Interesting applications as we come around next time, but it'll be fun to watch how Carnival and the different patterns, customer patterns, we'll see come out of this use case. So hope that helps.
Great. Yeah. No, thanks, Sean. And I think the other thing is the example that Brian went through of allowing you to make a purchase within a vehicle. We talk about Alexa and all these new touch points. I think some of the bigger monolithic stacks are just they're too slow to actually innovate and to reach these new touch points. So from a commerce perspective, if you're not looking toward the future and new touch points, and frankly, there's going to be touch points that we're not really thinking of today that we need to be planning on for the future. So I think it's important that your underlying technology, and that's why the folks at Elastic Path are doing some innovative work here. It's really going to help you separate and get you ready for the future, because we know that it's a knife fight against Amazon, and we need to be doing everything that we can. So I think having that innovative edge and being prepared for the future on those new touch points in order to deliver a great commerce experience is going to be important. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for the time today. Please go through and fill out the questions here. If you want a deeper follow-up, I know there was some technical questions that some folks wanted to go a little bit deeper. Feel free to put your information in the fourth question here. We'll do a follow-up. We can go a little bit deeper. Like I said, there were some folks that I know your questions didn't get answered. There was a lot that came in. So really appreciate the time today. Thank you again for the folks at Elastic Path, and I want to pass it over to Jeff to close out the session.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And yes, thank you so much to Sean and Brian as well for the great content for today. And especially want to thank you, our audience. As Ryan just mentioned, we had a ton of questions that came in, and that makes it a much better session for everybody because your questions are often on the minds of other people that are attending as well. So you being willing to offer those up, we really appreciate that, and it benefits everybody. So thanks to those of you who have filled out our poll questions that are on the screen right now. If you haven't done so already, I will leave the room open for a few minutes so that you'll have a chance to give us some additional feedback. We do really appreciate your attendance today. And as a reminder, this will be emailed out, the recording of the session as well as the presentation, and any other relevant resources will be emailed out to everybody who registered for the session within the next day or so, and they'll also be posted to the Solution Partner Portal so you can review the content or perhaps share it with a colleague who was unable to attend today. Please also be on the lookout on the Solution Partner Portal for other upcoming events that we have. We have these webinars regularly, and so we would love to have you join us at any of the Solution Partner Program webinars that we offer. With that, we'll go ahead and sign off. So depending on where you are in the world, we wish you a good rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you for your attendance, and hope you'll join us again next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.